feeling very happy. His blue coat shone in the sun, he was right on time, and for him the countryside seemed prettier than ever before. Beep, beep. Good morning, Percy, he whistled. But what, Percy? Out with it. Well, said Thomas anxiously. His name's Stepney. He's far away, but the Fat Controller says he may visit us. When? Oh, someday. And Percy hurried away. Meanwhile, Stepney was puffing purposefully along his line. It runs through fields and forests, but isn't very long, which made him feel a little sad. Later, he saw Rusty. The little diesel had helped save Stepney from scrap. Everyone's been so kind, but my railway is so short, and I do miss a good long run. I think you should tell Driver 2, replied Rusty. I'm sure he'll understand. Go just the same way. That evening, Stepney's driver had exciting news. Guess what, Stepney? The Fat Controller has invited to get there. Oh, thank you, sighed Stepney. They sat, said Percy. Thomas was feeling a little jealous. Huh, it may be famous, but my branch is... And he huffed away to fetch his coaches. Look, squeaked Percy. Why have they all come? There is no train yet. But Percy was wrong. The signal dropped, and from far away an engine whistled. Here he comes, yelled Douglas. Stepney puffed proudly through the junction. All the engines were pleased to see him. I hope you'll meet Thomas too, said Ox, and they worked happily together all afternoon. Train. Mustn't be late. Engines heard shouting at the station. Moments later came the alarm. Stop all trains! The signalman answered the telephone. A special, is it? I see. Sorry, Thomas, said his driver. We're being shunted to allow another train to speed and disappear. Well, bust my boiler, said Thomas the Tank Engine. Next morning, Thomas was still fuming. Shunted, and on my... I'm sorry, said Stepney. I was a special. Why? An important passenger arrived just as you left. He ordered a special train, and Duck let me take it. We had a splendid run, but... But, finished Thomas kindly, it can make an engine nervous not to know the line. Exactly, said Stepney. You're such an expert. This made Thomas feel much better. He couldn't be cross anymore, and instead began telling Stepney all about his branch line. Stepney's visit to the Fat Controller's railway was coming to an end. We shall miss you, said the Fat Controller. Then he turned his attention to all the other engines. My railway is very busy, and I am pleased with you, but you need help. A diesel is all that's available. Please do your best to avoid any, disturbances. What does that mean? Whispered Duck. That means this diesel is difficult, snapped James. And he was. The diesel surveyed the shed. Not bad, I've seen worse. At least you're all clean, he sneered. The engines glared. It's not your fault, but your controller should scrap you and get engines like me. A fill of oil, a touch on the starter, and I'm off. No bother, no waiting. They have to fuss around you for hours before you're ready. The engines were furious. Next morning they held an indignation meeting round the turntable. Disgraceful, mumbled Gordon. Disgusting, said James. Despicable, spluttered Henry. To say such things to us, cried Donald and Douglas. It's to teach him a lesson we'd be wanting. Now how do we do it? The chance came sooner than expected. The diesel was purring comfortably. An inspector watched the fitter making final adjustments. The wind tugged at the inspector's hat. The diesel was ready. Look at me, Duck and Stepney. Now I'll show you something. He rolled proudly towards his coaches. Then it happened. Shaking and spluttering, the diesel stopped. Meanwhile, the inspector was looking for his hat. The diesel seethed with fury as Duck and Stepney pushed him back to the shed. My hat! Exclaimed the inspector. You've sucked it through your air intake. Bother your hat, said the Fat Controller. The heavy train's due out. You'll have to take it, Duck. Stepney, will you help, please? Thank you, sir, cried Stepney. I'd like a good long run on my last day. Engines were soon ready. Gordon will take over from halfway, so get the train there. Good luck. Don't worry, smiled Stepney. We'll get there and be early, too. The cavalcade moved carefully over the rails and out to the open line. Now for a sprint, off Stepney. I'm ready when you are, replied Duck. Soon they were whizzing through Edward Station. And next, they charged at Gordon's Hill beyond. They felt the drag of the heavy coaches here. It was hard work. At last, they were running smoothly along the line towards the big station. Hello, said Gordon. You're early. That's one in the headlamp for old Diesel. James says he's sick as boiler sludge and sulking in the shed. Serves him right for saying we're out of date. And Gordon chortled away. Next day, everyone came to say goodbye to Stepney. Come back and see us soon, whistled the engines. And you are always welcome on my Bluebell Railway too, replied Stepney. Then puffed away. And what about Diesel? He'd slipped out whilst no one was looking. He said goodbye to no one but left two things behind. A rather nasty smell and a battered bowler hat. Stepney the Bluebell engine was busy talking to Way, and he was having a splendid time. You are very lucky engines, he said. Your line has got everything. Then you have a quarry and a mine, so you need plenty of trucks. Trucks are fun. I miss them on our line. Driver first. The drivers agreed and... Thomas and Toby were speechless. Stepney took the trucks to the harbour. Picked up a load of empty ones and started back. Ahead was a cricket field. The game had just begun. Train. Clunk went the signal. Fall into a truck, but neither driver nor fireman heard it. Stop! Yelled the players. But Stepney cried the players. Wake up, Caroline, they said to their old car. The chase is on. Caroline coughed crossly and rolled down the road. Stepney wasn't hurrying. Caroline soon came up behind him, still too far away for his driver and fireman to see or hear properly. He completely misunderstood. If those jokers want a race, said the driver, they can have one. Fastest. Caroline wasn't happy at all. She rattled along at twice her usual speed. Up for my system, it'll fuse all my circuits. Hurrah! Cried Caroline. That silly train has run into a hole so we can't catch it. I can go home now. But she couldn't. The driver pounded Caroline on up the steep hill and then down the other side towards the station. Stepney was already there when Caroline cluttered in. Some straw in the third truck from the van. We found you. Now we must get back quickly. You'll be lucky, said the driver. Caroline looks worn out. And she was. The driver spoke to the station master and the signalman, and they all agreed a plan. Soon, they had rolled Caroline onto it, and Stepney pulled the train back to the playing field. Everyone enjoyed watching the game. Even can save the wear on a poor car's wheels. Thomas the Tank Engine puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clara. The Fat Controller was waiting on the platform. He looked at his watch. Well done, Thomas. You are right on time and really reliable. Thank you, sir. But the big engines were not... He's supposed to fetch our coaches. We get no rest, complained James. Wedge angrily onto the turntable and spoke rudely to Henry. What's the matter, Henry? There's no rain today. Stop worrying and do some work. It's not wet anymore, puffed Henry. Anyway, you look silly enough to be a clown. You should be in a circus. Oh, whistled Percy, so you've heard the news. What news? Grunted Gordon. About the circus. Percy, what are you talking about? The circus has arrived, explained Percy. I've been sure. Until you were cross all over again when James got to pull the train away. A little later, a Fat Controller at the gate. Pushing trucks, grumbled Henry. They stopped outside the tunnel. The workmen went inside. It was very dark and quiet, but not for long. shouted the workmen, and they ran out. We started to dig at the block, but it grunted and moved, one said. Rubbish, said the foreman. It's not rubbish, it's big and alive. We're not going in there again. Right, said the foreman. Happily, he had been shut in the tunnel for being afraid of the rain, but beep, beep, I don't want to go in. And very strong, it began to push the train backwards. Out of the tunnel came Henry. Then the trucks, and last of all, a large cross elephant. The workmen gave him some cake. He drank 3 buckets of water and was just about to drink another when Henry, cried the elephant. Water went all over Henry. Poor Henry. The elephant, ever will you be afraid of next? Never mind, Henry, murmured Thomas. I think you were brave today and really reliable too. Gordon, the big engine, and Thomas the tank engine puffed buffer to buffer back home. It had been a busy day. First, Thomas had teased Gordon about the time that the big engine had slid into a ditch. Then Thomas fell down a mine, and Gordon came to his rescue. Remember, Thomas, called Gordon roundly, united we stand, together we fall. You help me, and I'll help you. I'll remember, replied Thomas, but I hope the Fat Controller forgives us soon. Suddenly they noticed something. As the 2 engines whistled into the sheds, everywhere they looked they saw paint pots and painters. Bust my buffers, said Thomas. What's happening? Shh, whispered Percy. The Fat Controller is going to tell us now. Ladies, gentlemen, and engines. I am honoured to inform you that Her Majesty the Queen herself is coming here to visit us. Now, on with the preparations. The engines wondered who would pull the royal train. I'm too old to pull important trains, said Edward sadly. I'm in disgrace, sighed Gordon gloomily. You'll choose me, of course, boasted James. You, snorted Henry, you can't climb hills. He will ask me to pull the train, and I'll have a new coat of paint. Then the rain came. Henry's driver and fireman covered up their cab to keep dry. A painter was on the ladder above the line. Henry's smoke blew high into the air. The painter couldn't see. Both he and the paint pot fell all over Henry. Poor Henry. Well, you're not a pretty picture, sneered the painter. The Fat Controller spoke next. You look like a nice cake, Henry. That won't do for the royal train. I must make other arrangements. Gordon and Thomas were waiting for him. Please, sir. One at a time, replied the Fat Controller. Yes, Gordon? May Thomas have his branch line again? I think you are both very sorry and deserve a treat. Edward will go in front to clear the line. Thomas will look after the coaches, and Gordon will pull the train. The great day came. All the engines worked hard, bringing people to the town. Thomas sorted out their coaches in the yard. Edward steamed in. Beep! The Queen is here! Then Gordon whistled as he approached the station. Everyone knew that sound. The Queen's train glided into the station. Gordon was spotless, and his brass shone brightly. The Fat Controller stood to attention. Welcome, Mum. The Queen thanked them for a splendid run and asked to see all the engines. Beep, beep, whistled Toby and Percy. Shh, hissed Henry and James. But Toby and Percy didn't care. 3 cheers for the Queen! Beep, beep, whistled the engines. When it was time to leave, the Queen spoke specially to Thomas, who fetched her coaches. Then to Edward. And finally to Gordon, who took her away. No engines ever felt prouder than those on the Fat Controller's rail.